Respected ulama, my brothers, my sisters, my little ones, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. After praising the Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and sending salutations on our beloved Nabi Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, I begin as always by first thanking you, my host, for giving me this opportunity to convey the message of Allah and His Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. I pray to the Almighty Allah that Allah accept these efforts of yours in listening to this message, as I pray to the Almighty Allah that Allah accepts these efforts of mine in trying to deliver the message of Allah and His Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam as it was revealed upon our beloved Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam in its true and pure form over 1400 years ago. My young friends, the title for this evening is The Importance of Ilm-i-Deen. The importance of acquiring a religious knowledge. How important is it for people like yourself and myself, people that declare La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah, there is no God worthy of worship but Allah, and Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam truly is the messenger of Allah? How important is it for people like yourself and myself who profess and declare that there is no one that we love more than Allah and His Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, and for Allah and His Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam we're prepared to sacrifice everything we possess, but we're prepared to lay down our lives for Allah and His Rasul? How important is it for people like this that make such claims to learn the deen of Allah, to learn the book of Allah, to understand the book of Allah, to learn the ahadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, to learn the sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam? How important is it for us to learn this deen, familiarize ourselves with the teachings of Allah and His Rasul, and adorn our lives with these beautiful teachings? My young friends, once upon a time, such was the love for Allah and His Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and such was the level of iman, such was the dedication, such was the commitment, such was the zeal that our forefathers Abu Bakr, Umar, Usman, Ali, Talha, Zubair, Sa'ad, Sa'id, name every single one of them. Our forefathers, my young friends, they were prepared to sacrifice everything they possessed for Allah and His Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam. They were prepared to sacrifice their wealth for Allah and His Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam. They were prepared to sacrifice their health. They were prepared to sacrifice their time for Allah and His Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam. They were prepared to sacrifice their family members, from their mothers to their daughters, from their fathers to their sons. Such was the love for Allah and His Rasul, my young friends, that they wouldn't hesitate to sacrifice their lives for Allah and His Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Such was the level of iman. If Allah gave the likes of Abu Bakr, Umar, Usman and Ali life 100 times, my young friends, they would not hesitate to give 100 lives to Allah and His Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Every single one of them, from Abu Bakr, Umar, Usman, Ali, there was a fire burning inside his heart, just as that fire burns inside our hearts for the sake of the dunya. This fire burning inside the hearts of Abu Bakr, Umar, Usman, Ali was for the hereafter. This fire was for Allah and His Rasul. This fire was for Islam and Iman and for the deen of Allah. And this fire burning inside their hearts, my young friends, was such that they could give everything to Allah and His Rasul. And they strived giving everything to Allah and His Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Who can forget the likes of Sayyidina Bilal Habshi radiallahu ta'ala? My young friend, how many times you will have heard the story of Sayyidina Bilal Habshi radiallahu ta'ala? They would persecute him by day and they would persecute him by night. They would whip him by day, they would whip him by night. And when blood would gush from the sacred body and blessed body of Bilal radiallahu ta'ala anhu, blood is gushing from his body. My young friends, the kuffar are taking advantage of this situation. They would drag him to add salt to the wounds. They would drag him in the scorching heat of Arabia, in a land where temperatures in the summer months exceed 45 degrees centigrade. My young friends, in a land where even the mountains of Makkah, they cannot tolerate the heat of Makkah. For those that have been blessed with the ziyarah of Makkah and performed the Umrah, will have seen with their own eyes that the mountains of stone have turned black because they cannot tolerate the intense heat of Makkah al-Mukarramah. In a land where even the mountains cannot tolerate the heat, my young friends, they would drag Sayyidina Bilal Habshi radiallahu ta'ala anhu midday when the sun was at its peak, and they would force him to lie down in an open desert. They would force him to lie down on the sun, and then as he lay there burning, they would take a large stone and they would place it on the chest of Bilal, and they would torment and torture further, and they would say, "Oh Bilal, لا تزال هكذا حتى تموت أو تكفر بمحمد وتعبد اللات والعزى." Oh Bilal, we will do this day in and day out. We will do this night in, night out. We will punish you by day. We will punish you by night. We will torment and torture you till you do not leave the deen of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and you return to the worship of the idols Lat and Uzza. My young friends, this is how they would persecute Sayyidina Bilal Habshi radiallahu ta'ala anhu. And Bilal, as he would suffer there, he would respond, "Ahad, Ahad, O Kafiro, I've declared the kalima La ilaha illallah. Now I will die with the kalima La ilaha illallah. O Kafiro, you can strip the skin from my body. You can make my bones naked by stripping the flesh from my bones. But I've declared the kalima. I will die on the kalima." This was the fire burning inside the heart of Bilal. He could lay down his life not once. My young friends, if Allah gave him life 100 times and sent him in the dunya 100 times, Bilal without hesitation would give his life and everything he possessed to Allah and His Rasul 100 times. Who can forget the likes of Sayyidina Khabbab radiallahu ta'ala anhu? How many times, from how many different speakers you will have heard the story of Khabbab? They would brand his head with hot iron rods. This is the same Khabbab. Just like you've gathered here today and you've attended this blessed gathering, the Sahaba radiallahu ta'ala ajma'in are sitting in a gathering. They're in the presence of the great Umar Farooq radiallahu ta'ala an. Umar Farooq radiallahu ta'ala anhu needs no introduction. He's that companion of Rasulullah regarding whom the Nabi of Allah said, "لو كان بعدي نبي لكان عمر." If Allah were to send a prophet after Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, though la nabiyya ba'di, there is no Nabi after Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But if Allah hypothetically were to send a Nabi, then this person that would be honored with prophethood would be no other than Umar Farooq radiallahu ta'ala an. Umar is that companion of Rasulullah. Even the shaitan was terrified of Umar. He would not walk on the same street, the road, the same pathway as Sayyidina Umar Farooq radiallahu ta'ala anhu. This is the same Umar that seizes and quarrels. When they would see Umar in a dream, they would begin to sweat and become terrified. The Amir al-Mu'mineen, Sayyidina Umar Farooq radiallahu ta'ala anhu, is sitting in the gathering. The Sahaba are surrounding him, and Sayyidina Khabbab radiallahu ta'ala anhu comes to visit the Amir al-Mu'mineen. And as soon as Sayyidina Umar Farooq radiallahu ta'ala anhu saw Sayyidina Khabbab, remembering the sacrifices of Sayyidina Khabbab. Khabbab was from the Sabiqeen al-Awwaleen, from the former, when Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, at the dawn of Islam, when Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam declared that he was the true Nabi of Allah, Khabbab came and declared, "La ilaha illallah, Muhammadur Rasulullah." Ya Rasulullah, I declare there is no God worthy of worship but Allah, and I believe that you, Muhammad, is truly the messenger of Allah. He came at the dawn of Islam and declared the kalima La ilaha illallah. And from that moment onwards, Sayyidina Khabbab sacrificed everything he possessed for Allah and His Rasul. And Umar Farooq radiallahu ta'ala knew this and realized this. Thus, when Sayyidina Khabbab came to visit the Amir al-Mu'mineen, the gathering is taking place. Sayyidina Umar Farooq radiallahu ta'ala wants to honor him. He calls Khabbab, "Oh Khabbab, come and sit right next to me." And he honors him and makes him sit right next to him. And then he addresses the gathering and says, "Ma ala al-ardi ahadun أحق بهذا المجلس من هذا إلا رجل واحد." That on the face of this earth, there is nobody more worthy of this honor more than you, Khabbab, except for one individual. Oh Khabbab, there is no one on the face of this dunya that's more worthy of this place in which I've asked you to sit more than yourself, except for one individual. Sayyidina Khabbab radiallahu ta'ala anhu asked, "O Amir al-Mu'mineen, who can be more worthy than me of this honor, of this seat in which you've asked me to sit more than myself?" And Sayyidina Umar Farooq radiallahu ta'ala said, "O Khabbab, only and only Bilal Habshi radiallahu ta'ala anhu is more worthy of this honor and this seat in which I've asked you to sit more than yourself. Only Bilal in this dunya is more worthy of this honor than yourself. Sayyidina Khabbab radiallahu ta'ala anhu explains and says to the Amir al-Mu'mineen, O Amir al-Mu'mineen, O Commander of the Faithful, O Sayyidina Umar Farooq radiallahu ta'ala anhu, you say this, but in my opinion, Sayyidina Bilal Habshi radiallahu ta'ala anhu is not more worthy than me of this honor. Because, O Amir al-Mu'mineen, the kuffar would persecute Bilal. They would persecute him so much that sometimes other kuffar that were watching Bilal being persecuted, their hearts would soften and their hearts would melt, and they would pity Bilal as he would suffer, and they would come to his rescue and they would save him from the torment and torture of these other kuffar that were persecuting Bilal Habshi radiallahu ta'ala anhu. He says this is what would happen now and then for Sayyidina Bilal Habshi, that other kuffar, their hearts would melt and they would come and save Bilal from the torment and torture of the torturers and the other kuffar. But Amir al-Mu'mineen, this never happened for me. When the kuffar would persecute me, when they would torture me, nobody's heart would melt. Nobody would feel sorry for Khabbab. Nobody would pity Khabbab, that Khabbab is suffering. And then he said to the Amir al-Mu'mineen, O Amir al-Mu'mineen, I saw the day, I witnessed that day. لَقَدْ رَأَيْتُنِي يَوْمًا أَخَذُونِي فَأَوْكَدُوا لِي نَارًا ثُمَّ سَلَقُونِي فِيهَا ثُمَّ وَدَأَ رَجُلٌ رِجْلَهُ عَلَى صَدْرِي فَمَا اتَّقَيْتُ الْأَرْضَ إِلَّا بِظَهْرِي. O Amir al-Mu'mineen, I witnessed the day when the kuffar captured me. They caught hold of me and then they started a fire and then they took off my clothes. And when the fire became hot, he says, they dragged my body over heaps of smoldering charcoal. And as I lay there burning, one of them then, he stood on my chest, so I'm able to get up and run away. And I keep on burning. And then he asked the question, he asked the gathering, O Muslimano, O believers, what do you think put out the fire that day? You know, as Khabbab lay there burning on heaps of smoldering charcoal, and there's somebody standing on his chest, what do you think put out the fire that day? There's silence in the gathering, and Sayyidina Khabbab answers himself. He says, O Muslimano, it was the blood and pus that came out from the back of Khabbab that put out the fire that day. Every single one from amongst the companions of Rasulullah, our Salafus Salihin, there was this fire burning inside his heart. And this fire burning inside his heart, my young friends, didn't allow him to rest, didn't allow him to socialize, didn't allow him on a Saturday night to wine and dine, or even go out with his wife to some restaurant and enjoy themselves, while the ummah suffers, while the ummah as a whole is deprived of Iman and Islam in different corners of the globe. My young friends, this fire burning inside his heart didn't allow him to rest till he did not give everything that he possessed to Allah and His Rasul, so that the deen can be elevated and spread to different corners of the globe. Who can forget the likes of Ammar ibn Yasir? And what a beautiful family. You had Ammar, you had Yasir, and you had our mother Hazrat Sumayya radiallahu ta'ala an, awwalu shahida fil Islam. She showed the men how to give life to Allah and His Rasul. This was the first martyr in Islam. The kuffar would persecute this entire family. Ammar, Yasir, Sumayya, so much, my young friends, that when the Nabi of Allah, the Nabi of mercy, would pass by and he would see the likes of Ammar, Yasir and Sumayya suffering because the kuffar are persecuting them. And the Nabi of Allah at this moment in time, in the early days of Makkah, is weak. There are not many followers. There's no one that can save the likes of Ammar and Yasir and Sumayya from the persecution of the kuffar. When Rasulullah would see this blessed family suffering, tears would flow from the eyes of Rasulullah. So many tears that it would dampen the blessed beard of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And Rasulullah would console them. Isbiru ala Yasir, Isbiru ala Yasir, fa inna mu'idakumul jannah. Make sabr, O the family of Yasir. Be patient, O the family of Yasir. O family of Yasir, istiqamat. Hang on there, be patient, stay strong. Allah loves you so much that Allah has elevated your ranks in paradise. Your abode is paradise. And the Nabi of Allah, this is how he would console them. Every Every single one of them, my young friends, was unique, was special. A fire burning inside his heart. And this fire burning inside his heart was for the akhirah, was to please Allah and His Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam, was to elevate the kalima la ilaha illallah. Just as the fire burns in our hearts for the dunya today. You want to succeed in the dunya, and thus you strive for the dunya. You want as much as you can get for the dunya, because you and I believe the real life is the life of the dunya, not the life of the akhirah. And this is why you will work 5 days a week, 7 days a week. You'll work 10 hours a day, 15 hours a day to get as much as you can, from one car to another car, from one house to another house, from one woman to another woman. My young friends, they realize the life is the life of the akhirah. This life of the dunya is temporary. One day you will leave, whether it's after 70 years, whether it's after 80 years, whether you were one of those fortunate ones, you hit a century and you exceeded and passed 100 years of age. Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. They know we belong to Allah, and to Allah we will return, whether it's sooner and whether it's later. And this is why this fire wouldn't allow them to rest. Look at when it came to the sacred knowledge, acquiring the deen of Allah, learning the ahadith of Rasulullah, learning the Quran, the book of Allah, wanting to understand the book of Allah. My young friends, you and I, how far does it go? You know, our fathers admit us into madrasas when we're 5 years of age. Around 12, 13 years of age, it's history. And all you've learned, top end, is how to recite the Quran. Yet what the Quran actually says, what your Creator is asking for you, what your purpose in life. My young friends, that's a no-go area. And this is how our life comes to an end. And then at the age of, what do you call it, we leave the madrasa at the age of 12, 13. You've never ever picked the book of Allah ever again. And like that, you live your life as you live your life. Then all of a sudden you see light at the age of 30, 35, and now you open the book of Allah and you realize you can't even read the book of Allah. You've forgotten how to read. This is the passion for the akhirah. Yet this book, how can you fulfill your purpose in life if you don't even understand what this book says? How can you acquire the pleasure of Allah and His Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam if you don't even know what the book says? Look at Abdullah bin Abbas. Look at the passion when it came to this sacred knowledge, my young friends. Passion for the deen. You have a companion of Rasulullah called Sayyidina Abdullah bin Abbas. Who was Abdullah bin Abbas? My young friends, Sayyidina Abbas was the uncle of Rasulullah, Saka Chacha, blood uncle of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Abdullah was his son, one of his sons. He was from the family of Rasulullah. He was close to Rasulullah. He was near and dear to the Nabi of Allah. But in spite of this closeness and being near and being the cousin of Rasulullah, look at his passion for the deen, my young friends. How many hadiths he will have known? He will have heard directly from Rasulullah. How many things that he will have, how many majlises he will have attended, the majlis and the gatherings of Rasulullah. But look at the passion and the fire burning inside this heart. I ask you, my young friends, how old do you think he was when the Nabi of Allah left this world? 10 years of age. When Rasulullah left this world, Sayyidina Abdullah bin Abbas was a mere 10 years of age. 10 years of age, and look at this fire burning inside his heart. There are many 10-year-olds here today. There are some younger. You know, once upon a time you were also 10 years of age. I was also 10 years of age. Tell me, my young friends, what was your passion when you were 10 years of age? What would you do when you were 10 years of age? What tickled your fancy when you were 10 years of age? What was your interest when you were 10 years of age? I'm not in a position to speak about yourself, but let me tell you about myself. My young friends, you know, at the age of 10, you know, when you're that young, yeah, you know, the akhirah doesn't interest you. The dunya doesn't interest you. The only thing that interests you when you're that young is play. You play by morning, you play by afternoon, you play by evening. Your mother has to drag you in and put you to bed so you can get up for school next day. You have no fikr, no gham, you have no worry, nothing whatsoever. That's how beautiful this young age is. Yeah? In this day and age, the 10-year-olds, what occupies their time? You know, YouTube, videos, Facebook, Call of Duty, video games, you know, iPhones, you know, tablets. This is what occupies their time, and they'll be on it for hours and hours and hours. But look at this 10-year-old child. Look how Allah blessed him. Look at the samaj and the understanding that Allah gave him. Rasulullah ﷺ leaves this world and he comes to his Ansari friend and he says to his Ansari friend, "Ke halumma falnasal ashab Rasulillah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam fa innahum al-yawm kathir." Oh my Ansari friend, the Nabi of Allah has passed away. Let us go to the companions of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Let us learn from them the deen of Allah. Let us learn from them the Quran and the meanings of the Quran. They benefited from Rasulullah. They benefited from the closeness of Rasulullah. They learned the deen from Rasulullah. Let us go to them and learn the deen of Allah. Let us learn the hadith of Rasulullah so we can adorn our lives with the teachings of Allah and His Rasul. The Sahaba are alive and well and in great number. Abu Bakr, Umar, Usman, Ali, Talha, Zubair, Sa'id, Sa'id, every single one of them are alive. Let us learn from them what we couldn't learn from Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam because of our young and tender age. Look at the passion, 10 years of age. You know, in this day and age, my young friends, you know, you have peer pressure. Every child, you know, wants to fit in within his circle of friends. Your friends dress in a particular way. Even if you don't want to dress in that way, you have no choice. If you want to fit within that crowd, then you've got to dress like those people. If you don't, you know they'll belittle you. They'll take mick at you. They'll look down upon you. You can't survive. You know, you want to wear the same trainers that they wear. You want to wear the same designer wear that they wear. You want to have the same habits and hobbies that they have. And if you don't, life will be very difficult for you. Peer pressure. You know, even a straightforward good lad will go off track because of peer pressure. Look at the peer pressure here. Sayyidina Abdullah bin Abbas radiallahu ta'ala anhu. This is what he's suggesting to his friend. And his friend says, Ya ibn Abbas, أترى الناس يفتقرون إليك وفي الناس من أصحاب رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم فيهم. Oh Ibn Abbas, what dream do you dream? Oh Ibn Abbas, what dream do you dream? Oh Ibn Abbas, do you think by acquiring this sacred knowledge from the companions of Rasulullah, you'll become some great alim-e-deen, you'll become some Sheikh al-Hadith, you'll become some Mufassir, you'll become some Muhaddith, you'll become some great scholar, and people will travel from far and wide and sit in your gatherings and humble themselves before you and learn the deen of Allah. Is this the dream that you're dreaming, and is this what your intention is? My young friends, look at the peer pressure. It didn't allow this peer pressure to get the better of him. Abdullah bin Abbas radiallahu ta'ala was a wise man. He realized what will benefit him in terms of the akhirah and in terms of this response from his friend. My young friends, Allah blessed this 10-year-old with such intellect that he ignored his Ansari friend and he went out to learn the ahadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam. And whenever this 10-year-old was informed that so and so companion is narrating the hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, this 10-year-old child would humble himself and he would make his way to this individual's house to learn the hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam. Many a time when he would go to this individual's house, my young friends, he would find that this individual is inside his house. He's taking a siesta. He's sleeping. He's taking his afternoon nap, midday nap. My young friends, even though he was from the family of Rasulullah, he could have so easily knocked on the door and disturbed this individual. And if this individual saw that the cousin of Rasulullah is at his door, very gladly he would have embraced him and he would have told him the hadith of Rasulullah. But my young friends, this young individual wouldn't take advantages of his maqam and status. No, my young friends. When he would know that this individual is taking his siesta and sleeping inside, this young individual, the cousin of Rasulullah, would wait outside his house. He would take off his outer garment, my young friends, and he would lie down on the ground in the scorching heat of Arabia, midday, and the sun would burn him. Sometimes the wind would blow and it would cover his blessed body with the dust and dirt. This is no ordinary companion. This is the cousin of Rasulullah, sleeping on the ground on the streets of Medina outside somebody's house for the hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And he would wait there for as long as it took till this individual himself, when he would finally wake up from his sleep and he would open the door to leave his house, he would be shocked to see that the cousin of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, this 10-year-old child, is sleeping on the ground covered in dust and dirt. And then this companion would say to the cousin of Rasulullah, he would address him, Ma ja'abik yabna ammi Rasulullah, or the cousin of the Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam, what brings you to my house? And he would say to him, Halla arsalta ilayya fa'atiyak, why didn't you send a message to me? I would have come to you. You're the cousin of Rasulullah. There was no need for you to come to my house. I would have come to you. I would have narrated the hadith to you at your house. Again, this child would humble himself and say, Nahi bhai, no, these are not the etiquettes of knowledge. These are not the adab of knowledge. You are the source. You are the well. And it is always this, that the thirsty should go to the well. The student should always go to the teacher. And my young friends, the child would humble himself and he would take the hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam from this companion. Indeed, the Ansari lived today, his friend lived to see the day when Abdullah bin Abbas radiallahu ta'ala indeed had become king. Such a king, my young friends, that people are traveling from different corners of the world to attend his circles. Hundreds are around him wherever he would go. Somebody is stopping him and asking him, Oh Abdullah bin Abbas, what does this verse of the Quran mean? Somebody is stopping him and asking him, what does this verse of the Quran mean? Somebody is stopping him and asking him, Ki Abdullah bin Abbas, what's the hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam with regards to this? What does this hadith mean? What masail can we derive from this sunnah? What does this Arabic word mean? Hundreds and hundreds are gathered around Sayyidina Abdullah bin Abbas radiallahu ta'ala. Who can forget the likes of Sayyidina Abu Hurairah radiallahu ta'ala? Who was Abu Hurairah? Abu Hurairah means father of the cat. This was the title that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam gave him himself, because he used to keep a cat, a little kitten in his sleeve. So the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam called him Abu Hurairah Abahir, father of the kitten, father of the cat. My friends, look at the passion for this sacred knowledge, and look at the love for this deen and for Allah and His Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He wasn't from amongst the Sabiqeen al-Awwaleen. When do you think he declared the kalima La ilaha illallah? From this incident you realize it's never too late. Irrespective of how old you are and how much you know at this moment in time, whether you're 15, 25 or 55, when it comes to the deen of Allah, the doors of Allah are open and it's never too late. It's only till your soul leaves your body, it's too late. But prior to that, my young friends, there is always a chance to turn to Allah. There is always a chance to start from scratch, make tawbah, ask Allah for forgiveness for the past life, and then learn as much of the deen as you can, so you can adorn the remainder of your life with the beautiful teachings and live by the Quran and Sunnah. Look at Sayyidina Abu Hurairah. When do you think he declared the kalima? He wasn't from amongst the Sabiqeen al-Awwaleen like Abu Bakr and Umar. Abu Bakr, Umar and all these, they were from the Sabiqeen al-Awwaleen. When Rasulullah declared that there is no God worthy of worship but Allah and I, Muhammad, is the messenger of Allah, came Ali and declared La ilaha illallah. Came Abu Bakr and declared La ilaha illallah. Came Khadija and declared La ilaha illallah. Usman, Ali, the lot of them, they came and declared La ilaha illallah. My young friends, Sayyidina Abu Hurairah declared the kalima in 7th year of Hijrah, after the battle of Khaybar with the Yahud. Yeah? How long did Rasulullah stay in Makkah? 13 years. And then the Nabi of Allah migrated to Madinatul Munawwara. And the 7th year after his migration, the battle of Khaybar took place. After this, now Abu Hurairah comes and declares La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah. So from the dawn of Islam, from the moment the Nabi of Allah declared that he's been honored with prophethood, 20 years passed, 13 in Makkah, 7 in Medina. 20 years, around 20 years after, now Abu Hurairah comes, declares La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah. So he wasn't from amongst the Sabiqeen al-Awwaleen. But you know what? From the moment Allah guided him, and from the moment he realized and he recognized Allah and His Rasul, and Allah brought him into the fold of Islam, I guess these thoughts must have crossed his mind. Okay, look at the life that I've lived before Islam. The life in Jahiliyyah, not knowing who Allah and His Rasul is. A life in which idols were worshipped and every sin under the sun was committed. I guess these thoughts must have crossed his mind. How can I ever compete with the likes of Abu Bakr and Umar in terms of the akhirah? They've declared the kalima La ilaha illallah 20 years before me. Where must their maqam be in terms of the akhirah? Which Jannah do you think that they've been allocated? I guess, these types of thoughts must have crossed his mind. And he's thinking, how do I get close to these people? My young friends, from the moment he declared the kalima La ilaha illallah, Nabi Kareem Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam left this world in the 11th year of Hijrah. So he had around 4 years from the moment Allah guided him to the Sirat al-Mustaqim till Nabi Kareem Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam left this world. My young friends, he did not leave the side of Rasulullah. He did not leave the side of Rasulullah. It was about making amends. Making amends for the life that he lived. No more now that Allah has guided me. No more now, never. He stayed by the side of Rasulullah by day and by night, Hazar or Safar. Whether the Prophet ﷺ was home in Medina or whether the Prophet ﷺ was abroad in jihad. Wherever you found the Nabi of Allah, with him you found Sayyidina Abu Hurairah, observing the Nabi of Allah, the sunnahs of Rasulullah, listening and noting in his heart and mind every word of Rasulullah so much, my young friends, that the Nabi of Allah himself would ask Abu Hurairah, Ya Aba Hurairah, ala tas'alani min hazi al-ghanaim allati yas'alani ashabuk. Abu Hurairah, why is it that you're different? Abu Hurairah, why is it that you don't ask me for this mali ghanimat? Why is it that you don't ask me for this booty, spoils of war, gold, silver, dinar, dirham, pounds, dollars? Why is it that you never ask me for this? You never ask me for the dunya. Your friends, your companions, they're always asking me for mali ghanimat. One will come and ask, another will come and ask. They will always ask me for dinar and dirham. But Abu Hurairah, you don't ask me for this. And he would say, Ya Rasulullah, as'aluka an tu'allimani mimma 'allamaka Allah. Ya Rasulullah, this dunya doesn't interest Abu Hurairah. Ya Rasulullah, the akhirah is 1,000,000 times far better than the dunya. Ya Rasulullah, the only thing that interests me is that you give me some of that nur, that light that Allah has placed inside your heart. Ya Rasulullah, the only thing that interests me is that you give me some of that knowledge that Allah has given you and placed inside your heart. Ya Rasulullah, this is the only thing that I'm interested in, so I can adorn my life with these beautiful teachings and please Allah and His Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He says, my young friends, my friends from amongst the Muhajirin and Ansar were occupied. My friends from the Muhajirin and Ansar were occupied. Some were occupied with their businesses. Some were occupied with their orchards, their farms. He says, I was a poor man, so poor that I didn't eat leavened bread or wear robes of silk or have servants to serve me. There was no such thing. There's no such thing that, acquiring the dunya and accumulating the dunya. No leavened bread, no latest garment, robes of silk, or servants to help me in my work. No. He says, I was so poor that I would take stones and I would tie them to my stomach due to hunger to ease the pain of hunger. In those days when they didn't eat for a few days and they could no longer tolerate and it was getting very, very difficult. My young friends, the companions of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, what they did so this deen of Allah could reach you and me. They would take thin stones and they would tie them to their stomach to ease the pain of hunger, and that would help them. It would alleviate or it would reduce the suffering for a short while. Look at the Nabi of Allah. If that was the state of the Sahaba, then I'm sure you're all aware in the battle of Ahzab, Khandaq, the trench, when the whole of Medina and the Arab tribes gathered to attack Medina to the Munawwara, and Rasulullah is parishan, worried, and he consults the Sahaba, and Salman of Persia tells the Nabi of Allah that in Persia, when things like this would happen, we would defend ourselves by digging trenches. Nabi Kareem Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam accepted his mashwara. and the advice that he gave, and they began to dig the trench. And if you look at those hadiths, my friends, you will come across a hadith where the Sahaba, general Sahaba, have stones tied to their stomach, one stone because of hunger. And the Nabi of Allah on that occasion, my young friends, had 2 stones tied to his stomach due to hunger. And in this state with 2 stones tied to his stomach, the Prophet ﷺ has a pickaxe and he's breaking the rock, and he hits it and it breaks, and a light rises which illuminates the rocky sides of Madinatul Munawwara. So this is what they would do. And Sayyidina Abu Hurairah says, sometimes days I wouldn't receive anything, and I would tie stones to my stomach to ease the pain of hunger. And sometimes he says, I'd pretend. What do I mean by pretend? He says, I would stop senior companions like Abu Bakr, Umar and others, and I would pretend that I didn't know a meaning of a particular verse, and I would stop them and I would ask him, Abu Bakr, what does this verse of the Quran mean? My young friends, and he says, not because I didn't know that verse of the Quran, not because I didn't know the meaning of that verse, O Muslimano, I would stop them because I was suffering from starvation. Maybe when they have a good look at me, they didn't used to ask in those days. This was the level of taqwa even when they were suffering. My friends, he was saying maybe when they have a good look at me, they will realize Abu Hurairah is suffering from starvation, and they will take me home. They will explain the verse and they will feed me. He says, this is the only reason I would stop them and ask them and pretend, okay, oh my brother, what does this verse of the Quran mean? He says, sometimes it was so bad. Days would go by in which I would not receive a morsel. And he would say, إِنِّي لَأَخِرُّ فِي مَا بَيْنَ مِنْبَرِ رَسُولٍ صلى الله عليه وسلم وحجرة عائشة مخشيا عليه. He says, I would faint inside the masjid of Rasulullah صلى الله عليه وسلم in Madinatul Munawwara. I would faint between the mimbar of Rasulullah and Hazrat Aisha's room, her quarters, which was adjacent, right next to the masjid. It says, between the mimbar and her room, I would faint, unconscious, I would fall, collapse on the ground. He says, passers-by would pass by. فَيَجِيءُ الْجَائِ فَيَدَأَ رَجُلٌ رِجْلُ عَلَى أُنُخِي يَرَى النَّبِيَ الْجُنُونَ. He says, passers-by would pass by, thinking that Abu Hurairah has become a madman. He's become insane, and he's lying on the ground because of insanity. He says, the passers-by would pass by, and they would place their feet on my neck. In those days, that was one of the cures they would use if somebody had an epileptic fit. So he says they would put their feet on my neck, thinking that Abu Hurairah has become a madman. He says, oh Muslimano, it wasn't that Abu Hurairah had become a madman or become insane. Days would go by in which I would not even receive a morsel to eat. As a result, I would become so weak that my own legs would not be able to carry my weight, and I would fall unconscious in the masjid of Rasulullah. But in spite of all this difficulty, my young friends, he says, look at the fire burning inside his heart. This is why I keep on saying, my young friends, every single one of them, from Abu Bakr, from the first companion to the last companion, that saw the Nabi of Allah in state of Iman with his eyes, such was the level of Iman that through the barakat of Rasulullah, my young friends, you know what, every single one of them, if Allah and His Rasul asked him to give his life 100 times, they would not hesitate to give their lives 100 times for Allah and His Rasul. It says, in spite of what I went through, I would be present when my friends, referring to the Muhajirin and Ansar, while they would be absent, busy with their businesses, occupied with their orchards. I would be present when they would be absent, and I would remember the hadith of Rasulullah and the speech of Rasulullah and the blessed words of Rasulullah, whereas they would forget. And then he says on one occasion, the Nabi of Allah said, whoever spreads his garment till I finish this talk of mine, and then takes his garment and places it on his heart, on his chest, he will never ever forget a word that Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam uttered. I ask you, my young friends, when the Nabi of Allah made this call, uttered these blessed words, in that gathering, Who do you think was the first to take off his garment? None other than Sayyidina Abu Hurairah. When Rasulullah uttered these blessed words and made the call, whoever takes off his garment and waits patiently till I finish this speech of mine and takes it and places it on his chest, he will never forget a word that Muhammad's uttered. My young friends, the first person to take off his garment was none other than Sayyidina Abu Hurairah. He says, I took off the only garment that was on my body and I spread it, just like our beloved Nabi Muhammad requested. And I waited there patiently, listening to the blessed speech of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And when the Nabi of Allah finished his speech, just as the Nabi of Allah said, I took this chadar, I took this garment and I placed it on my heart and my chest. He says, I swear by Allah, from that day to this day, I have never forgotten one word that Rasulullah ever uttered. One word Rasulullah ever uttered. My young friends, he declared the kalima, La ilaha illallah, in 7th year of Hijrah. Rasulullah leaves this world in the 11th year of Hijrah, a mere 4 years top end. Look up from where he started and look at where he got. Out of all the companions that we've received hadith from today, in this day and age that we have in the books, my young friends, the most hadiths that have reached us are narrated from none other than Sayyidina Abu Hurairah radiallahu ta'ala. Over 5,000 hadiths narrated from Sayyidina Abu Hurairah radiallahu ta'ala. Every single one of them. Who can forget the likes of Sayyidina Abu Ayyub al-Ansari radiallahu ta'ala? The fortunate one. Why I call him the fortunate one, my young friends? Was he not the one that received the honor of entertaining the Nabi of Allah when Rasulullah migrated from Makkah to Medina? In whose house did he reside? None other than Sayyidina Abu Ayyub al-Ansari radiallahu ta'ala. For the sake of one hadith, Sayyidina Abu Ayyub al-Ansari radiallahu ta'ala traveled all the way from Medina to Munawwara to Egypt. One hadith, from Medina to Egypt. You and I, in this day and age, we can't understand this. We live in the age of technology, where never mind traveling from here to Egypt, we talk about sending shuttles and sending people to space travel. Yeah? That's what we talk about. Traveling is so easy at this moment in time that you've probably got an easy jet app on your phone, and as you sit in this gathering listening to this reminder, you've got your Samsung, you tap onto your app, and within 2 minutes you can book yourself a ticket to Morocco, and even you'll see 4 hours you're there and it's history. This is how easy it is. You don't even think about traveling. The whole world, just like the Prophet ﷺ predicted 1400 years ago, will become like a village. Yeah, everything, taqarabul aswaq, and this is exactly what we're seeing. But in those days, traveling wasn't an easy thing. When people would travel, never mind 1400 years ago, for those of you at my age, ask your grandfather. In those days, when they would leave for Hajj from Pakistan, Bangladesh and Hindustan, on the steamers, it would take months to get to Makkatul Mukarramah. The whole journey would be months. And before they set out on a journey like that, they would think twice. But they would think 100 times. And they would set all their affairs in order before they actually left for Hajj. They would make wasiyah, they would write a will. They would instruct, in case I die, because many people never used to return. Long, arduous journeys, difficult terrains, no peace, dacoits, no safety. So they used to write their wills. In case I don't come back, this is what I want you to do. That was just in our grandfather's era. Can you imagine 1400 years ago? Desert of Arabia, scorching heat, no service stations to fill up. Yeah, nothing whatsoever. You lost the way, no water, you're a dead man, you're history. Now in those days, where it probably take around a month just to get from Medina to Egypt, you can just imagine Sayyidina Abu Ayyub al-Ansari radiallahu ta'ala traveling for the sake of one hadith. And you know what baffles me and amazes me is, you know what? He was the one that entertained the Nabi of Allah. You know, if you've not received a blessing, then you'll strive and sacrifice for that blessing. But if you've already got too much of a particular thing, now you've already got £1 million in your bank, you're not going to travel for £10 to Bangladesh. He was the fortunate one. He was the one that entertained the Nabi of Allah. How close do you think he was to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam? On that particular occasion, how many hadiths do you think he must have heard directly from Rasulullah himself? How many gatherings do you think he must have attended of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam? How many hadiths he must have heard? But look at the passion for the deen. In spite of the fact that he's heard all these hadiths and he's benefited hundreds of times from Rasulullah, my friends, in spite of all this, look at the love, look at the fire burning in his heart, that he travels from Egypt, from Medina to Egypt for one hadith. And when he gets to Egypt, he meets a man called Sayyidina Uqba radiyallahu ta'ala anhu. He meets Sayyidina Uqba. Sayyidina Uqba is shocked to see that this great companion of Rasulullah has left the holy city of Medina, left the Nabi of Allah and come to Egypt. And he addresses him, Ma ja'a bika ya Aba Ayyub. O Abu Ayyub, what brings you to Egypt? And Sayyidina Abu Ayyub al-Ansari radiyallahu ta'ala anhu says, a hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Out of all those that directly heard this hadith from Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, only you and I remain alive. Now listen carefully to his words. Out of all those that directly heard this hadith from the blessed tongue of the Nabi of Allah, salawatullahi wa salamu alayhi, only you and I remain alive. What is he saying? He's saying that when Nabi Kareem sallallahu alayhi wa sallam quoted these blessed words, there were many people sitting in that gathering. All those people that heard them with their own ears, they've passed away, only you and I remain alive. So he was actually there when Rasulullah uttered these blessed words. So when he was actually there, he heard the words with his own ears. Why has he traveled hundreds of miles from Medina to Egypt? From this you will learn another lesson. You know, we live in an era of Mufti Google, where people are carefree when it comes to the deen of Allah. You know, in any other field, people won't express their opinion. You know, at this moment in time, yeah, if you're not a doctor, you will never express an opinion in medication. And you won't prescribe medicines for yourself. You're suffering from a particular illness, even though it may be something so simple, and you know what medication to take, but you will never take it. You have that fear. Okay, you know what? What if something goes wrong? And you'll go to the doctor for the simplest of things, and you'll allow that doctor to prescribe medicine for you, and then you go to the pharmacy and you'll buy that medication. How careful people are when it comes to dunyawi affairs. Yeah? They will not express opinions in fields which they have no expertise in. Yet when it comes to the deen of Allah, every Tom, Dick and Harry, every individual, he can't even read the Quran. But when it comes to the deen of Allah, he will have an opinion. And the deen of Allah is not based on opinions. It's based on the teachings of Allah and His Rasul, the Quran and Sunnah. But you won't hesitate. And we live in an era where you can buy whichever fatwa you like. You know, on the internet, whatever you're looking for, you'll find a scholar that will give you that fatwa. It's the age of fitna. And look at how careful these companions of Rasulullah were when it came to the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Why is it that the likes of Abu Bakr, who was there from the dawn of Islam, but even before Islam, he was a near dear friend of the Nabi of Allah. He grew up with Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Why is it that he doesn't narrate 5,000 hadiths like Sayyidina Abu Hurairah radiyallahu ta'ala? Why is it the likes of Umar doesn't narrate 5,000 hadiths like Sayyidina Abu Hurairah radiyallahu ta'ala? My young friends, they were so cautious. They heard Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam say, "Man kathaba alayya muta'ammidan falyatabawwa maq'adahu min an-nar." Whoever attributes something to Muhammad that Muhammad did not say, then you know what? His abode is the fire of hell. They heard the Nabi of Allah say this, They were so cautious even when they knew a hadith. My young friends, they were very, very careful when it came to expressing it, in case they fall under this category. Man kadhaba alayya muta'ammidan falyatabawwa maq'adahu min an-nar. Whoever attributes to Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam something that he's not said, his abode is hell. And today nobody's bothered. We'll fabricate things and attribute them to the Nabi of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And here, Sayyidina Abu Ayyub al-Ansari was participating in this gathering. Look how careful he was. He's gone all the way from Medina to Egypt to see that, you know what, the Nabi of Allah has passed away now, years have passed. He was in that gathering. Does he still recall the words as Rasulullah ﷺ's blessed tongue uttered them when the Nabi of Allah was alive? Or has he forgotten something? So he's gone to Sayyidina Uqba and he said to Uqba, "Oh Uqba, relate the hadith with regards to concealing the faults of a believer." So Sayyidina Uqba narrated, okay, Prophet ﷺ said, whoever conceals the faults of a believer in the dunya, Allah will conceal his faults in the akhirah. So Sayyidina Abu Ayyub al-Ansari radiallahu ta'ala, when he heard these words, he said to him, "Sadaqta, you've spoken the truth. This is exactly how I recall. These are the words that I remember that Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam uttered." He's taken the hadith, my young friends, and now he turns his mount and he heads back to Madinatul Munawwarah. He did not stop as much for a cup of tea, for a morsel in Egypt. Look at the passion for the deen. Hundreds of miles for the sake of one hadith. And look at the passion today. Look at the passion today, my young friends. You'll see it on days like this, the level of iman. Where do you think the masses are at this moment in time? Real Madrid versus Atletico. For some people, that's life. For some people, that's religion. For some people, you know, if their wife were to get in between them and football, they divorce her. That's how much it means to them. Don't get me wrong, guys, I'm not against football. I love it as much as you, if not even more. But it's getting your priorities right. What you will do for your dunya and what you will do for your akhirah. The difference is heaven and earth. There's no interest. You've got time to socialize. You've got time to chill with your yard in his car with the music blaring, and all you'll do is just go around the block. And you'll go again and again and again, 4 or 5 of you, and you'll spend hours. Oh look, when it comes to something like ta'aleem, I'm just giving an example here. In your local masjid, Tablighi Jamaat say after salah, let's sit down for ta'aleem. Yeah? You get a heart attack. You daren't sit down. And like all they're reading is a hadith and explaining a hadith. And it's not that you know it all. None of us know it all. وَفَوْقَ كُلِّ ذِي عِلْمٍ عَلِيمٍ. Above every knowledgeable person, there's one not knowledgeable. And even if you do know it all, وَذَكِّرْ فَإِنَّ ذِكْرَ تَنْفَعُ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ. You know, a reminder benefits a believer. When you hear what the words of Allah and His Rasul, إِنَّمَا الْمُؤْمِنُونَ إِذَا ذُكِرَ اللَّهُ وَجِلَتْ قُلُوبُهُمْ. You know, when Allah mentioned, you know, the hearts of the believers, their hearts soften. You know, it increases them iman. زَادَتْهُمْ إِيمَانًا وَعَلَى رَبِّهِمْ يَتَوَكَّلُونَ. Do you understand? But you won't spare 5 minutes. You'll pretend that you're the busiest man in the world. That you've got a multi-billion-dollar business, and you'll take out your phone, one in your right pocket, one in your left pocket, and you'll just pretend that somebody's ringing you. And you'll walk on the street just talking. Because you're the bad boy. That is the sad reality when it comes to the deen. No time. You know, your heart. Yeah, my young friends, what will save you in terms of your akhirah? You know, I'm just giving you one example. You know, you have another companion. He travels from Medina to the blessed land of Sham. May Allah protect the Muslims of Sham from the aggression and all this zulm. And may Allah help them just like He helped the Muslims in Badr, and take care of the affairs of the entire Ummah of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He's gone all the way to Sham. In those days, you know, people would travel. Allah talks about in the Quran, لِإِلَافِ قُرَيْشِ إِلَافِهِمْ رِحْلَةَ الشِّتَاءِ وَالصَّيْفِ. They would go there, buy goods, and sell it in Makkah al-Mukarramah. You know, when Badr took place, Abu Sufyan had taken the money of Makkah went to do business in Sham and he was bringing a caravan full of goods. So that's what they would do. So he's gone all the way to Sham and he meets the companion of Rasulullah, Sayyidina Abu Darda. And he says to Sayyidina Abu Darda, "Oh Abu Darda, I swear by Allah, I've not come to Sham because I'm in need. I've not come to Sham for the sake of business because people would come for business." He said, "Oh Abu Darda, I've come for one hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam." Abu Darda was so happy that he gave him glad tidings. He said to him that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "Ma min abdin yakhraju yatlabu ilman." Any servant of Allah leaves his house in search of knowledge. This servant is so dear to Allah that Allah sends His angels. إِلَّا وَضَعَتْ لَهُ الْمَلَائِكَةُ أَجْنِحَتَهَا. This person doesn't walk on the ground, he walks on the wings of angels. This is how Allah honors him. When somebody important comes, they throw flowers. So he's walking on these flowers. This is how I honor him. Allah sending His angel from the heavens and they spread their wings and this person is walking on the wings of these angels. وَصَلَكَ بِهِ طَرِيقًا إِلَى الْجَنَّةِ. He's on the path to paradise. If he dies now, he's going to paradise. And then he narrates the entire hadith. My young friends, look at the likes of Ibn al-Qasim. We struggle to give 5 minutes to Allah and His Rasul. And you had a man called Ibn al-Qasim. How many years do you think Ibn al-Qasim stayed at the feet of Imam Malik? The great Imam from Madinatul Munawwara, Imam Malik, Imam Hanifa, Imam Shafi and Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal. 4 Imams that Allah blessed and gave kabuliyat and acceptance that today the whole world follows. The Ahl Sunnah follow the fiqh of one of the 4. 17 years Ibn al-Qasim stayed at the feet of Imam Malik to benefit from the Imam Malik. 17 years of life, my young friends, he's given to learn the deen of Allah, to familiarize himself with the teachings of Allah and His Rasul. He's with the great Imam Malik one day when some Hajjis of Egypt come. They came to perform Hajj, now they're coming to Medina to say salam to our beloved Nabi Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So they enter the masjid and they meet Imam Malik, and with them is this one young individual whose face is more or less covered. And this young individual, he meets Imam Malik and he asks Imam Malik, "O Malik, afiqum Ibn al-Qasim? Is there a man here called Ibn al-Qasim?" So Ibn al-Qasim was in the gathering. Imam Malik said, "This guy there, this is Ibn al-Qasim." Now this young individual, his face is covered. He makes his way to Ibn al-Qasim and he begins to kiss the forehead of Ibn al-Qasim. He begins to kiss the forehead of Ibn al-Qasim. My young friends, Ibn al-Qasim did not even know that this person, this young individual kissing his forehead, is none other than his own flesh and blood. Ibn al-Qasim did not know that this was his own son that was kissing his forehead. Why? Why do you think that was? When Ibn al-Qasim left home, when he left Egypt, when he left home, Ibn al-Qasim, Egypt, he said to his wife, "Okay, my beloved, I'm going to now learn the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I want to realize my purpose in life. I want to realize what my Allah is saying to me. So I'm going to go learn the deen of Allah. When I will return, I don't know. Year, 2 years, 1 month, 2 months, 1 week, 2 weeks, I don't know when I will return. If you want to stay as my wife, then fine. But if you feel that you can't bear the separation, not knowing when I will return, and you want to move on in life, and you want me to divorce you, then I can accommodate this." My young friends, she chose to remain his wife. And at the time when he left, his wife was expecting. She gave birth in their absence. And after 17 years, this was the first time he saw his own son. If you think giving 17 years of life for Allah and His Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam is a sacrifice, it just gets better. There was a man a scholar called Baqi ibn Makhlad al-Qurtubi from Cordova in Muslim Spain. Once upon a time, the land of the Muslims. We ruled there for so many years. What an era. Baqi ibn Makhlad al-Qurtubi from Cordova, when he left home the first time, he remained absent for 14 years. When he remained absent the second time, when he traveled the second time, he remained absent for 20 years. So a total of 34 years he spent learning the deen of Allah and the hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. You know, he walked from Muslim Spain on foot, thousands of miles, all the way to Makkah, Medina, Hijaz, Sham. Wherever he heard that there are hadith of Rasulullah and scholars narrating the hadith, Baqi ibn Makhlad al-Qurtubi would get there. This is the same Baqi ibn Makhlad al-Qurtubi who sold his trousers more than once. Can you imagine, my young friends, you know, how desperate do you think that he must have got? That a stage comes that where you're selling your own trousers just so that you can buy ink and paper so you can write the hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And you know what he would sustain himself on? Cabbage leaves. Cabbage leaves which people would throw on the ground. He would spend all his money on ink and paper to write the hadith, and he would sustain himself on cabbage leaves which people had no need for. They would throw on the ground. He would pick them up, he would clean them, and he would eat them. You know, if you think 34 years is something, then I'll ask you, my young friends, what will you say about a man called Hafiz ibn Manda? You know, in this day and age, you know, when you mention the word Hafiz, what automatically comes to mind? Hafiz is Quran. A child that's memorized an individual that's memorized the Quran. You know, in those days, more or less everyone was a Hafiz. You know, when they mentioned the word Hafiz in those days, it was referring to Hafiz hadith. And the word Hafiz, this title was given to an individual who had memorized 100,000 ahadith of Rasulullah off by heart, sanad and matan. You know, 100,000 hadith of Rasulullah, sanad and matan, the chain and the text. And if you want to know how difficult that is, when you go from here, pick up the Sahih al-Bukhari, see if you can do 10, and see how long it takes. But you know, our Hafizah is such, you know how good our Hafizah is, that you and I, the general public, you know, our entire lives in Salah, we can't get beyond Qul huwallahu ahad, Allahu samad, lam yalid wa lam yulad wa lam yakul lahu kufuwan ahad. We can't get beyond that. You'll read that in every rakat, in every prayer. Fajr, Dhuhr, Asr, Maghrib, Isha. And when you know somebody tells you, Kibai, you know, why do you learn Inna A'tainaka al-Kawthar? You know, you'll opt, it's too much for me, I can't memorize, I'm weak. Too old, I can't do it. Memorize Surah Fil, I can't do it. And your whole life will pass, and that's all you'll know. This is in terms of your akhirah. And in terms of your dunya, when you're making a claim, you'll know all the rules off by heart. Books and books of them. For family credit, child benefit, you know, which law applies when, who, what, where, how. And in terms of the akhirah, you're weak. So in those days, Hafiz hadith was a guy who knew 100,000 hadiths off by heart. Hafiz ibn Manda, how old do you think he was when he left home? 20 years of age. You know, in this day and age, when you're around 20, 21, or whatever it may be, either your parents after your A-levels will send you to university. And if you're, you know, one of those that it's beyond you, so your parents will say, Putter, get yourself a job and look after yourself and contribute. And you'll go, find yourself a job. And when will you retire? 65? More or less. That's your life. He left at the age of 20. How old do you think he was when he returned? 65 years of age. He went at the age of 20. You know, my young friends, you know, for people like yourself and myself in this day and age, where our whole life doesn't get past Qul huwallahu ahad, it's pretty difficult to comprehend this. But you know, when you have a passion for something, when you love something, then for that you give day and night. You know, when these young guys fall in love, yeah, and they should be doing it the halal way, yeah, what do? What's up? Chit chat. How long will they do it for? Hours on end, non-stop. Mazar, I know you get a buzz out of it. And you know, if a third person was listening to your conversation, he's thinking, yeah, this guy's chatting rubbish, yeah. What the hell are these two on about? I love you and that's all you're saying. It doesn't go past I love you in different words. And you'll spend the whole night talking rubbish. But look at the sacrifice, look at the hours and dedication. Because you're obsessed with the other half and she's obsessed with you. Yeah? And you'll give day and night for that. These people, when it came to obsession, they were obsessed with Allah and His Rasul and the Akhirah. And for that, like I said, never mind giving 45 years of life, they could give life 100 times if Allah gave them life 100 times. And he came back as a Hafizul Hadith. Who hasn't heard the name of Imam al-Shafi'i? Rahimahullah, may Allah mercy be with him. Do you think Imam al-Shafi'i just became Imam al-Shafi'i overnight? Today the whole world takes his name, and after that they will say Rahimahullah, they'll make this dua for him. May Allah have mercy upon him. Because of what he did for the Ummah of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Abu Hanifa, Malik, Shafi, Imam Ahmad. May the blessings of Allah be upon every single one of them. The whole world today mentions him. My young friends, do you think Allah gave him this qabuliyat, this acceptance for nothing? For 16 years of his life, he sustained himself on dates. 16 years of his life, that's what he would eat, dates. Not chicken masala, tandoori, prawn curry on a Monday, chicken tikka on a Tuesday, samosas, bhajiyas on a Wednesday, biryani on a Thursday. 16 years he lived on dates, and he would only eat, my young friends, not a kilo baht or two, enough to survive, to sustain themselves. They weren't working on their stomachs, they were working on their hearts. Whereas you and I work on our stomachs or know our hearts. He was so poor that he could not afford to buy paper and ink. He would write on stones and pieces of leather. 7 years of age. Again, I repeat, how old? 7 years of age. He's sitting in the gathering of the great Imam Malik in Madinatul Munawwara. My young friend, 7 koi umar hoti hai? No. What is 7? Nothing. What did you do when you were 7? That's such a young, tender age that, we don't know our right from our left in terms of our dunya, never mind our akhirah. The only thing that, interests you is play at that age. That's the only thing that interests any 7-year-old. But look at this 7-year-old, look how, the summit and the understanding that Allah gave them. Now, bro, the right way, and then this is what you'll get. 7 years of age, and he's sitting in the masjid of Rasulullah in Madinatul Munawwara, in the hadith gathering and lecture of Imam Malik, the great Imam of Madinatul Munawwara. And it was a practice of Imam Malik that when Imam Malik would narrate the hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, he would relate in this manner: and fulan and sahibi hadha al-maqam, from so and so who narrates from so and so, from the one who narrates inside the grave, from the one inside this grave. So he would narrate like this, that so and so narrates the hadith, he narrates it from so and so, and he narrates it from the one inside the grave, referring to the Nabi of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And when he would actually say an sahibi hadha al-maqam, from the one inside the grave, it was the practice of Imam Malik that he would actually point at the grave of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that this one inside the grave has said these blessed words, and then he would utter the words of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Now he was narrating the hadith of Rasulullah on one occasion, and fulan and sahibi hadha al-maqam. When he was pointing at the grave of Rasulullah, when his eyes fell upon this 7-year-old child sitting in the gathering, and this child, it seemed to Imam Malik, is playing, is showing disrespect to the words of Rasulullah. He's got something inside his mouth, he's got a straw inside his mouth, and he's adding saliva to it. And when Imam Malik saw this, that saddened him. These people there, they were up there. When it came to adab and ihtaram, it's very difficult for us to comprehend. In this day and age, when a lecture's being delivered, or even your Jummah khutbah, for many, that's the best time for qaylula, to drop off. You know, it's amazing. That's when tranquility descends, when the Imam is delivering the khutbah. We walk in once a week, yeah, last 10 minutes, yeah. I mean, how the British government says, okay, what do you call it? You know what? The youngsters, their brains, brainwashed, yeah, by radical speakers. How they come to this conclusion, and generalize, it baffles me. Because you know as well as I. When you go inside the masjid, yeah, the khutbah will be for how long? The bayan, normally 20 minutes. And when you go at the beginning, all you see is old men there. The youngsters will walk in last 5 minutes. So what do they actually hear? And assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah, they're gone before the Imam even does the second salam. So where they get this brainwashing and radicalization, I just don't understand. And for the few that are there, yeah, the cameras will show you, mashallah, their all heads are down, yeah, and you'll hear the odd snore as well. Tranquility is descending, he's sleeping, yeah. And this is the respect that you have for Allah and His Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam. We can barely sit properly. You've got to lean and this and that. So their standards were high. The Imams in those days, one, I can't remember whose name, I think, whoever he was, he's narrating the hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and he's becoming impaired. So one of the students in the gathering said to him, "Ya Imam, today, I felt that something, different, something wrong." So what was it? So the Imam after the gathering said to him, "Look, raise my garment, see if you can see anything there." A scorpion or something had bitten him 17 times while he was delivering the hadith of Rasulullah, and he did not stop. He sat with adab and ihtaram. This is the level that we're on. So how was Imam Malik, even though it was a 7-year-old child, gonna tolerate somebody in his gathering while he's narrating the hadith of Rasulullah has a straw inside his mouth and he's adding his saliva, sputum to it? Now in that gathering, Imam Malik narrated 40 hadith. He waited for the gathering to come to an end. And after the gathering, he called the young Shafi'i. This child comes, humbles himself before Imam Malik and sits with adab and ihtaram. And Imam Malik now tells him off. Don't you have any shame? Are you not ashamed that I'm narrating the hadith of Rasulullah? You have no adab, ihtaram. That you're playing whilst I'm relating the hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Now my young friends, listen to the response of this 7-year-old child. He said, "Ya Sayyidi ma kuntu a'bath." Or my master, or my beloved teacher, I was not playing as you think. I was writing the hadith of Rasulullah with my spit. Because I'm so poor, I was writing the hadith of Rasulullah with my spit so I do not forget the words of Rasulullah. I'm so poor that I cannot afford 1 dirham, I don't even have a pound with which I can buy ink and paper and write the hadith of Rasulullah. Now Imam Malik was shocked that this child is claiming that he was writing the hadith of Rasulullah with his spit. So Imam Malik put him to the test and said, "Son, if you are speaking the truth, I narrated 40 hadiths today, just narrate 1 out of the 40. So the child sat just like Imam Malik, and just as Imam Malik would narrate the hadith, and fulan, and sahibi hadha al-maqam, and point at the grave, the young Shafi did exactly the same. And fulan, and sahibi hadha al-maqam. Now the Prophet ﷺ said this, first hadith. Second hadith, and fulan, and sahibi hadha al-maqam. The Prophet ﷺ said this. Third hadith, fourth hadith, fifth hadith. My young friends, Imam Malik asked for 1. Imam Shafi narrated all 40. This is how he became Imam Shafi'i. There was a master of hadith called Ibn al-Tahir. He went through so much difficulty that he says on one occasion, all I had was 1 dirham, 1 pound. I was in need of 3 things. I was in need of ink, paper, and food. He did not know. What was puzzling him and baffling him was, what should I spend my last pound or my last dirham on? Ink, paper, or food? You and I will never get to that situation. Because on a good day, we take care of our stomach. Never mind a bad day. So that don't even apply to us. He's sitting there thinking, okay, what should I spend my last pound on? How long do you think he sat there? You and I were thinking, this man was crazy. Just like if those people were alive today, couldn't understand, when you're sitting down talking to your, this so-called, that's going to be your other half for the whole night on WhatsApp or whatever it may be. It baffled them. But it baffles me, never mind them. What do you call it? 3 days pass like this where he's thinking, what should I spend my last dirham on? The level of iman and the love for Allah and His Rasul and the deen and the hadith was such that his heart wouldn't allow him to give preference to his stomach over the hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So much so that when 3 days passed, now he's that weak and he's become ma'zur and invalid. That he can no longer write, he doesn't have the strength to write. He says, you know what? Now at least I'll have an excuse on the day of judgment. I'm not in a position to write. So even if I buy ink and paper, I will not be able to write. And he makes his mind up to go buy some food. He places the dirham in his mouth, and you know what? By mistake he swallows it. And he says, look, oh Allah, look at what you put me through. Now that I've made my mind, you've taken it. It's only when his friend realized what had happened that he's taken him home and then fed him. Yahya ibn Ma'in was an imam of Jarh wa Ta'deel, a science of hadith. When his father died, he inherited 1 million dirham. In those days, 1 million dirham was a substantial amount. In these days, it's a substantial amount. Can you imagine if your father was to die, Allah not get it, may Allah not make it happen, and you inherited a few $1 million. What's the first thing that you do? Get yourself a Bentley and make it known who you are. Private number plate, and you'll be burning some rubber on Whitechapel. Like some of the Arabs that come from Saudi Arabia do in parts of London. That's our passion. 1 million dirhams he inherited from a father. He spent every single one on the hadith of Rasulullah. There a time came that he spent all the money. He's in need of money to buy ink and paper. He sold his shoes to buy ink and paper to write the hadith of Rasulullah. Imam Abu Yusuf, the student Imam Hanif rahmatullah alayh, his son died. He read his janazah, but he did not attend his burial in case he misses the lecture of Abu Hanifa. Ishaq ibn Rahway was a muhaddis. He married a woman, not because he wasn't love at first sight, that she bamboozled him, an absolute dynamite of a woman. No, he married her just because he'd heard she'd inherited the books of Imam Shafi'i. Whoever she was married to, he had the books of Shafi'i. She inherited the books of Shafi'i. Imam Ishaq wanted a benefit from these books, so he married her. As a result, they were going to excel. You have Yahya ibn Ma'in saying, the same Yahya ibn Ma'in who spent 1 million dirhams, he says, I saw the day, when you give all to Allah, Allah will give more in return. He says, I saw the day when I wrote with my own hands 1 million hadith. Ishaq ibn Rahway that married that woman, he says, whatever I heard I memorized, and whatever I memorized I did not forget till my last breath. The likes of Firyabi comes to Baghdad. In one gathering there's 30,000. In another gathering there's 70,000. More than what you get, in your, at Highbury. At the Arsenal games. These were kings. From the top of their heads they would write books. Abu Bakr ibn Umar, 30 books. Ibn Shaheen, 300 books. Suyuti, 500 books. How can you write 500 books? In those days when they were writing with, ink, paper, it wasn't an age of, era of computers, technology. You and I couldn't even write rubbish in the same amount of books in a lifetime put together. Never mind, books that were full of nur and light and, knowledge. In this day and age, if you were to pick up some of these books like the Fathul Bari of Ibn Hajar al-Asqalani, it'd probably take you an hour just to solve one page what the man's on about. Never mind anything else. top of their heads, 500 books. What to say of Ibn Hajar, Badruddin al-Aini? Name them one by one. This was the fire burning inside their hearts for the akhirah and for the sacred knowledge. Now, on a note, I'm going to conclude, guys. Where do you and I compare with our forefathers today? The sad reality is there's no comparison. What comparison? Let me tell you the comparison. You've heard about our forefathers. In this day and age, we live in an era of ignorance. Look at the level of ignorance. Basics of deen. There's millions out there that don't even know the basics of the deen. In terms of our dunya, look at how far we've got. Forget what's happening, on this dunya, whether it's in the land or sea or, the mountains. We talk about, moving to Mars and settling human beings in Mars in X amount of years. We're looking at galaxies through these telescopes which are millions and millions of light years away. This is in terms of our dunya. Look how far we've got. And in terms of the akhirah, and the real life is the life of the akhirah, look at where we've got. From the era of our forefathers, my young friends, we live in such an era that how many times does a person relieve himself in a day? 3 times, 4 times, 5 times? Yeah, 5 times, 4 or 5 times. Average guy will relieve himself in a day. Yeah, perform istinja. There are thousands out there that don't even know how to perform istinja. When it's compulsory that they have to use water and tissue will not suffice. There are thousands out there that don't even know masail with regards to istibra. And if people don't do istibra, the punishment of the grave, what's one of the causes? The 2 people that passed away, the Prophet ﷺ passed by their graves and they were receiving punishment. Why were they receiving punishment? Because one of them wouldn't take precautions when he relieved himself. Masail with regards to istibra. Majority of us will not even have heard the word istibra. Guys, it does, when it comes to the basics of the deen, it doesn't get any basics more simpler than this. Never mind istinja. Biggest obligation in Islam is salah. Biggest obligation after iman is what? Salah. Ayyul a'mali ahabbu ila Allah. When the Prophet ﷺ was asked, which is the deed that Allah loves most of all? What did the Prophet ﷺ say? As-salatu ala waqtiha. After iman, he would always mention as-salatu ala waqtiha, to read namaz in its correct time. How many times do you think Allah has made a mention of it in the Quran? You might think this is an exaggeration. There are millions out there that don't know how to pray. How are they going to know how to pray? They walk in twice a year for Eid al-Fitr and Eid al-Adha. Is that an exaggeration? Your local masjid on a normal day, how many people will you find in Fajr Salah? A handful? Zohr, a few more. Asr, a few more. Maghrib, probably maximum turnout. Yeah? And even then your masjid will be so big and you have 2-3 safs. That's your normal day, every day. How is it that on Eid prayer, your masjid is too small? It can't accommodate the muqtadis, the worshippers. So Imam Sahib will make an announcement. The first Jamaat will be at 7, the second Jamaat will be at 8, the third Jamaat will be 9, and the fourth Jamaat will be 10, and that's more or less every masjid. Where have the rest come from? Somebody that doesn't pray all year, how do you expect him to remember Surah Al-Fatiha? I'm not going to take names. Not so long ago, a particular individual, a very prominent individual from a Muslim country, struggled and cocked up reading a very basic surah. There are people out there, the Tablighi Jamaat will tell you, that travel far and wide and interact with people on ground level, that struggle to read the kalima as it should be read. Where are we going wrong as an ummah? The ignorance, my guys, the ignorance is not the problem. Why? Because Allah Himself says, وَفَوْقَ كُلِّ ذِي عِلْمٍ عَلِيمٍ. Above every knowledgeable person, there's a person more knowledgeable. I'm ignorant, there's one that's more knowledgeable than me. There's one that's more knowledgeable than him. There'll be a person more knowledgeable than you. So ignorance is not the problem. We're all ignorant to a degree. You know what the problem is? It's just this carefree attitude when it comes to the deen. When it comes to the deen, nobody's bothered, nobody's got time. When it comes to the dunya, you'll strive, you'll sacrifice, you'll give hours on end. But when it comes to the deen, you know what? Yeah, there's plenty of time. When I'm 70, 80 years of age, then I'll come to the masjid and I'll do what I've got to do. That's the mindset. Yeah, you know what? You've got everything. In terms of masajid, by the grace of Allah, even though we live as a minority, in a non-Muslim country, look how blessed we are. How many masajid we've got? How many madaris we've got? How many schools we've got? How many ulama we've got that speak all different languages? From English to Urdu to Bengali to Gujarati, you name it, Arabic. Whatever language you speak, you'll find an alim that speaks that language. And you can learn from him. And you know what? There's no charge. It's free. Who's charged you for anything today? The meal has been cooked. You don't have to travel like Baqi ibn Makhlad al-Qurtubi from Muslim Spain to Makkah. You don't have to spend 1 million dirhams like Yahya ibn Ma'in. The meal has been cooked. All you've got to do is take that morsel and place it inside your mouth. And we find it difficult. We're not prepared to do it. Where are we going wrong? Let me tell you where we're going wrong, guys. How is it going to benefit you learning the deen? Why should you waste your life learning the deen of Allah? Why should you even give 5 minutes to the Quran, to Islam, to the hadith of Allah? Why should you give it? How are you going to benefit? There is no benefit. The way you and I think in this day and age, there is no benefit. What's it going to get you if you learn the deen of Allah? In terms of the dunya, nothing. What will it get you? Will it get you a job? No. Put that on your CV, and you want to get married, she won't even consider it, she won't even look at it. That's the sad reality. What do we look at? What job he's got? How much he's earning? You and I know different. When we give our daughters hand in marriage, that's what you'll be looking at. Forget what the Prophet ﷺ said, تُنْكَلُ مَرَةُ لِأَرْبَعٍ لِمَالِهَا وَلِجَمَالِهَا وَلِدِينِهَا وَلِحَسْبِهَا فَصْلُ بِذَاتِ الدِّينِ. That was 1400 years ago. إِلَّا مَنْ شَاءَ اللَّهِ, except for those who Allah has given the understanding. So the deen is not going to get you anything in terms of the dunya. It's going to get you a fat car, nice mobile. But look at when it comes to the dunya, everyone strives and sacrifices. Everyone's got this dream for his son. But the doctor, engineer, pharmacist, dentist, you all dream the dream. And I haven't got a problem with the dunyavi sciences. By the grace of Allah, you're going to live in the dunya. It's good to have knowledge. So make life easy for yourself. Yeah? So you dream this dream. Why? Because look, a doctor's on a fat wage. 100k. All he's doing is pushing a pen. And with that, your dream car you can buy. You can buy your semi-detached or your detached. Put that on your CV. You've got women throwing themselves at you. Yeah, luxury, the sofas that you were dreaming about, car, doing the tango in the Caribbean. You've got it all. You see the benefit. But when it comes to the deen, there is no benefit. You know what, guys? I agree. If you learn the deen of Allah in terms of the dunya, there is no benefit. And if you learn the secular sciences in terms of the dunya, there's great benefit. Let me just ask you a question. How long will they last? How long will you enjoy yourself? 50 years? 60, 70, 80 years, 100 years, then what? Then what? Will you take them with you? Give me example of one guy that took his fortune with him, that took his house with him, other than Qarun, that went down and down his mansion went. Give me one example. The woman that every day tells you, Kiba, you are, I worship the earth on which you walk. Yeah? I love you this and I love you that. You know, that same woman, ask her whether she'll be prepared to go with you when the angel comes to visit. Ask her. See how much she loves you. You know what she'll say to you at that time? Nay, bye. That wasn't part of the vows that I took. It was till death do us part. Assalamu alaikum, off you go. That's the woman that says, I worship the earth on which you walked. That's the sad reality. Yeah? These things are temporary, and secondly, it's not necessary that they bring about happiness. They bring about comfort and ease. A nice car brings about comfort. Good leather sofas bring about comfort. It's not necessary that they bring about happiness. But if they brought about happiness, then why is it people that possess millions more than you and I will ever possess, why is it that they die of depression? Why is it that they resort to dope, women, alcohol? Because it doesn't bring happiness. My young friends, if you feel it's important to acquire the dunya because of this comfort, then why is it not important to acquire the deen of Allah, which will bring about comfort that your 10 billion pound can't bring in the dunya, and it will bring about comfort in the akhirah, which our little minds cannot even begin to imagine. In the dunya, if you're looking for happiness, guys, then listen to what Allah says. Allah, just this last point, guys, and I'm concluding. Allah bi dhikrillahi tatma'innul qulub. Only and only in the remembrance of Allah do these hearts gain peace. You've got to acquire this knowledge to be able to act upon it. And the more you act upon this knowledge, the more your heart will be at ease, at peace, content, happy, satisfied. So much so, my young friend, that you know what? Even if you don't possess a penny in your pocket and you're some beggar sleeping on the streets of Bangladesh using a stone as your pillow, you'll feel more happy in your heart and at ease and content than the sheikhs in Dubai in their palaces. Look at Sayyidina Bilal Habshi radiallahu ta'ala. You know, you'll get to a stage where you'll actually begin to taste the sweetness of Iman. The more you act upon this knowledge, the more sweetness that you will taste. I began with the example of Bilal and conclude on the example of Bilal. Why is it that the likes of Bilal wouldn't renounce the kalima? Why wouldn't he renounce the kalima? You know, they would persecute him by day and by night, whip him, force him to lie on burning sun. Why wouldn't he renounce the kalima? You know, if here and now, just as an example, my friend Ishi, and I were to get a danda, a stick, and start knocking him, yeah? One knock, and he'll start dancing to the tune that I'm singing. And whatever I ask him to do, he'll do. Why? Because he'll feel pain. And when you feel pain, you submit. You know, when you're being persecuted, you submit. You'll do whatever, you know, the person that's persecuting you, torturing you, asks for. If not after a bit, very soon, there's no man that can tolerate pain like that. So why is it that Bilal Habshi, even though that he was being persecuted, he wouldn't renounce the kalima, balki he was staunch and firm? No. Ahad, ahad, ahad. You know what my little understanding tells me? You know, when they used to persecute Bilal, you know, Zahir about that there was pain there, but you know, the sweetness of Iman would make him forget the bitterment of the punishment. You know, the buzz that he was getting, it would make him forget the bitterness of the punishment. I'll just give you the example and I'll conclude. You've got a restaurant, let's say down the road, called Cabana, and you've got a guy come from Sweden, white guy. He's heard about your vindaloo. Bengalis are known for their curries. So he's come for this vindaloo, and he likes vindaloos. And he's sitting down at this table on his own, and he's knocking back this vindaloo. And as he's knocking back this vindaloo, takes out his handkerchief, smoke's coming out of his ears and his nostrils, yeah, and water's coming out of his eyes because it's hot. And he can't, you know, tolerate so much chilies. So he's eating and he's, you know, water's coming out everywhere and he's sweating. and he's using this handkerchief, you know, on his head, on his eyes, and he's knocking back the window at the same time. Now you've walked in with some of your friends and you've seen this guy in one corner knocking back this window, and he's got, you know, water coming out of his ears, smoke coming out of his ears, and he's on his head and his nose and everything. And you think, you know what, poor guy, what must be happening to him? Somebody's probably died in his family, and he's going through so much difficulty, because that's what you can see. You don't know the reality of the situation. When you look at him from the outside, his outward appearance is showing that the guy is suffering, going through is being through some ordeal. But yeah, you know, inside, yeah, how much do you think he's enjoying that vindaloo? Do you think he'll give it to you if you ask him? Chip, I've come all the way from Sweden, mate. Yeah, and he'll knock it back. You know, Sayyidina Bilal Habshi radiallahu ta'ala, when you would see from the outside, you would see torture, you would see punishment, you would see pain. But just like that guy, I mean, the example that I've given you is lousy. It's just that's what you'll understand. Yeah? And here, Bilal Habshi, from the outside, you're seeing pain. But you know, from inside, he's at ease, content, bliss, happy. So happy that, you know, never mind once, you can take life 1,000,000 times. And that feeling, that the buzz that he was getting, you know what? He was not prepared to sacrifice that buzz for anything. And that's why he would utter La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah. This is happiness in the dunya. This is what Allah will give you. Don't believe me, guys. You know, if you think that what I've said is not the truth, then hold my neck on the day of judgment before Allah and say he lied. The medication, this prescription that I'm giving you, I can swear by it. Act upon the teachings and watch how you feel within. How your iman will increase. How you will feel this feeling. You'll get to a stage like Sayyidina Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam. When Allah asked for your child, he didn't hesitate. When they threw him inside the fire, he didn't hesitate to give his life. You get to a stage, Man ahabba Allah, ahabba Allahu liqa'ahu. Whoever loves to meet Allah. You know, you get to a stage where you realize, ad-dunya sijnul mu'min, that this dunya is a prison for a believer. Just like a bird wants to, it flutters in a cage. It wants to get out of the cage. You'll get to a stage where you realize, you know, this dunya, in spite of its apparent luxury, is a prison for a believer. You will want to meet Allah. And you know what? When the angel comes and that, you know, barrier is removed, yeah, that is the day you'll rejoice. Okay, I've left the prison to my Allah. That's just in the dunya. What do you think Allah will give you in terms of the akhirah? Guys, it's all about understanding. I've not come here today to ask you to become scholars, you know, and give 10 years, 15 years of life. Even I know, you know, in this day and age, that may be too much. All I'm asking, guys, is it too much to ask? Come at least an hour a week. 1 hour a week that you sit down with your imams, whichever masjid that you may go to, and learn the deen of Allah. Let's not just be happy with the bare minimum. The more you learn, the more you will be able to act upon and adorn your life. And the more you act upon, my young friend, the more sweetness and blissful your life will be. It's about understanding. What I've said today is not rocket science. If you can do it for your dunya, why won't you do it for your akhirah? Do what you can while you can. You're here today, you'll be gone tomorrow. And believe me, after that, it's history. Imma ila al-jannah, imma ila al-nar. You will either go towards the right, you will either go towards the left. Either towards Jannah, either towards Jahannam, and there is no return. Don't live to regret. Make a wise choice. Make the right choice. Allah give me the tawfiq to act upon what I've said. Allah give you the tawfiq. Wa akhiru da'wana alhamdulillah rabbil alamin.